let's do it together. As per usual, I have a large mug of tea, so grab yourself a drink or any beverage or snack. I heard that the pumpkin spice latte is back now. At least it's back in Canada, and yes, I will be going to get one as soon as possible. But right now I just have tea, so cheers. Yep. Okay. So tonight I am going to be reading some very creepy Reddit stories. These are, the title was Campers or Rangers of Reddit. What is the most unsettling, creepy, or supernatural thing that has happened to you while you were in the woods? So I don't know about you guys, but creepy stories from the woods terrify me. So let's get into it. Not my story, but my dad's. My father used to have a business in maintaining the woods. I couldn't find an English term, but it's a thing in my country. It basically means cutting down dead trees and then hauling them out of the area. This meant that he was out in the woods all day, and he was allowed in places that normal citizens couldn't come because of rules in place by the Forestry Commission. My dad was working in the early morning when he suddenly noticed a car in the middle of the woods. It drove through a small path normally only used by the forester. It wasn't a car from the commission, so he thought that it was He thought that it was very weird that it was there. However, Dad was alone, and it was in the 80s. No mobile phones to contact anyone. Since it was in the middle of nowhere, he decided to just ignore it. He kept on hauling wood through the woods with his horse when he suddenly heard men speaking. Now, my dad is a brave man, and he is strong as a bear, so he decided to just take a quick peek to see what the hell those folks were doing. My dad looked around some thick brushes, making sure that he could see the men. They were digging a hole. My father decided that it was something that he really would not want to interrupt, and he kept working throughout the day like nothing ever happened. He made sure to keep some distance between him and this digging site. The men apparently never noticed my dad, possibly because his equipment wasn't located in the direction that the men came from, and my father worked with horses, so there weren't any loud machines. It was the 80s after all. At the end of the day, my father got to the local commission office and he reported it, and they called the police. It turned out they had buried a body. It still irks my dad to this day. He was out there all alone. What if the men had seen him? What What if he decided to check the burial ground out by himself? That was some scary stuff. Nope. Okay, so story number 2. In retrospect, it doesn't belong on r/no sleep because it's actually true, as far as I know. But it's the most overtly supernatural thing I know of happening out there. A lot of the creepiness and happenings in this area are blamed on the so-called rainbow people. Not the rainbow family, they're fine. But according to local legend, there is a group of vagrant hippies who started a simple living cult in the 70s or 80s. They went up into the woods and they just never left. More colorful tellings say that years of isolation and hippie philosophizing warped their minds. Questioning if I said philosophizing correctly. The police in small mountain towns like Netherland and Ward acknowledge the existence of small groups of people who may or may not be these folks, and warn that they should be considered dangerous. Apparently, they wander around breaking into remote cabins for food and supplies, and taking any drug that they can manage to get their hands on. A close friend had a pretty creepy story about an encounter with a rainbow person. Has a story. He was living in his father's house, a cabin off the grid near Netherland. No running water, plumbing, no heat, electricity. Where he had a room on the ground floor with a bed directly underneath a large glass sliding door that directly faced thick woods. One night, he was woken up by the sound of something tapping on the glass. He checked his watch and it was around midnight. Half asleep, he blamed it on the wind, and without looking, he rolled over to go back to sleep. Later, he is woken up again. His watch says it's about an hour later. He woke up to the same tapping. He realizes something. There's no wind tonight. The trees are still. Suddenly awake, he grabs the handgun by his bed, sits up, and turns to look at the glass. There, not 5 feet from him, on the other side of this glass, is a frail, hairy, dirty, ghastly man with tattered clothing and bloodshot eyes, staring right at him. At the sight of the gun, this guy scampers back into the woods, but apparently he had been standing there, tapping and staring for an hour or more. We used to go out into the woods and party during our high school years, since nobody would bother us, and it was easier than staying in town. More than once, we would be just nobody knew. They would show up out of nowhere, talked with people, got high, and then seemed to vanish. Not hard to get away with when everyone is drunk and stoned out of their minds, but unsettling. Once, one of them gave my friend a necklace made of a piece, allegedly a piece of a wolf jaw, and told her to wear it in the woods so that the spirits did not, quote, hunt her. She didn't realize that nobody knew who the person was until days later. Okay. Story number 3 is from the same author, Redditor. I don't know what you call them. This was another off-the-grid cabin, middle of nowhere. Bring a few cakes and everyone you know, let's get wrecked situation. Even more secluded because this is my friend's property and he owns about 9 square miles of untouched land near Ward, Colorado. We are, or should be, the only human beings for miles. There's probably a couple dozen of us, and this is in mid-November, if memory serves. The original plan was to camp in tents around a bonfire, but it pretty quickly became more of a blizzard situation with low visibility, high winds, and frostbite levels of cold. This leaves us crammed into a maybe 600 square foot cabin to get effed up and pass out in a pile. No sweat, we're all friends. Sometime in the middle of the night, everyone is quieting down and I need a cigarette and I have to go to the bathroom. I stumble, pretty wasted, into my coat and my boots, and I throw on several hats. I go outside. The wind has slowed a bit, and the moonlight makes everything coated in ice and snow shine like diamonds. I light my smoke and I walk maybe 20 feet into the woods to pee. Something that every Colorado kid knows by heart is the frostbite wind chill chart. And the fact that in this winter, in this weather, flesh freezes in 25 minutes, it's hard to forget when you're going to the washroom outside. Midstream, I hear something, or I hear someone, another 20, maybe 30 feet out in the woods. Though, it sounds like a human voice. The wind makes it hard to hear, and the snow and dark made it impossible to see it. I managed to wiggle my smoke okay?" My name. I called out. Nothing. So I zip up and go to trudge further out to make sure that he's alright. Just as I'm stubbing out my smoke, though, I hear my name called much louder and clearer from the cabin. I yell back that I'm okay, and I head back to the cabin with a cursory glance behind me. Who's waiting at the door but the very kid that I could swear I heard in the woods? I told him I heard something. He told me that I was drunk. He wasn't wrong, but he trusted me enough to humor me by helping with a head count. Nobody was missing. I tried to forget the whole thing, but I was very glad to be sleeping well armed and in good company that night. What would I have found if I had headed farther out towards that voice? That sounds like a Skinwalker or a Wendigo, I believe. I don't like that. And that actually sounds very similar to the story I got a while ago. I'll link the video. The story from Akira, who was on the top of a mountain, and she heard a voice like that, which I believe also said "over here" multiple times to get her attention. Creepy. Okay. Next story. My family and I were camping on a lake in central Texas on a week with very few people around. Our spot was on the edge of the camp next to the woods and very close to the edge of the lake. We were playing Pictionary by the campfire the first night we were there when I see a light go over the lake. I didn't think much of it, and still focusing on the game when another one went by at the same speed. When another one went by at the same speed and following the same line. At that point, I did feel a little bit strange, but I still wasn't too worried about it. After that, another went by, and now I pointed out, next morning, we woke up and noticed a huge paw print on the back window right above where our heads were. Thankfully, we didn't have any food in the car, but still very creepy finding the bare paw print. And that is why I no longer go camping in the woods in a tent. I won't do it. I just won't do it anymore. Okay, another camping story. Two tents next to each other, about 5 feet apart, in the middle of the mountains. Had my 3 little brothers in one tent, and then me and my girlfriend in the other. It's nighttime, and we had just put the fire out, so now it's dark. Everyone is in their respective tents, snoozing off into dreamland. About an hour later, I am the only one awake, just daydreaming. Suddenly, I hear soft, human-like footsteps circling our tents over and over and over. Confused, I ask, who is there? With no response, but the footsteps continued, so I stepped outside. No one there. Footsteps are gone. And I go back into my tent. The footsteps start again. I make my presence known, and I go back outside. No one. Footsteps stop. Of course, I check on my brothers, but they are all asleep and sound. I repeat the same process about 4 to 5 more times, believe it or not. The footsteps stopped every time. I ended up just going to sleep to the footsteps sound and not caring. When morning came, I asked my brothers how they slept, and they responded with, "Fine, except for your walking loudly all around the goddamn campsite all night." I'm not convinced that there is an afterlife or such a thing as ghosts or demons, but I once saw something in the woods that felt so unnatural that it made me second guess how I see the world. I was hiking up a hillside thick with trees in the middle of the night during a long weekend. Some friends and I decided that we would hike to the top of the hill and light off some fireworks. Approaching the hill and surrounding the base of this hill was a rolling grass valley. It was around midnight, full moon plus light mist. This was straight out of a horror movie. The strange part was that I wasn't nervous or scared or anything. I was having a great night with my buddies. I didn't have any of my defenses up. My buddies and I just hiked in a straight line through the rolling grass valley, approaching the hill when something caught my eye. On my right, I saw a shadowy figure standing perfectly upright on the top of the small grassy hill. It was standing there right next to a large dead tree. I couldn't make out any details. Both the tree and the tall figure were silhouetted under the moonlight. The strange part was seeing this figure was that when I saw this figure, it didn't scare me. I didn't immediately sense any threat. I almost assumed that it might have just been another hiker or somebody having a smoke. I passively turned my flashlight on it, and that was when it happened. In an instant, as my light hit that spot where this figure was standing, it instantly moved just outside the range of my flashlight. It was like it teleported or something. But just as vividly as I saw it standing in its initial spot, as my light hit that spot and the figure moved, I could see it standing just outside the range of my light. My breath paused. In an instant, a wave of dread washed over me. Something felt 100% unnatural about what had just happened. As a reflex, I moved my light to the new spot where the figure was, and as my light passed it, it disappeared. I have never passed out in my entire life. Not from the heat, not from getting knocked out. Never. But in that moment, I felt my knees give away from under me, and I just fell to the ground. My friend turned and looked at me, trying to pick myself up, and my knees were too wobbly to stand. They helped me, and I tried explaining to them what I had experienced. I'm willing to bet that it was all just light and shadows playing a game with my eyes. But I will never be able to explain that sensation that I felt of feeling like I had just seen something that I should not have seen. Something so unnatural that my body's instinctual reaction was to just go limp when I saw it. Ooh. Okay. So this is the last story for today. This was in the Wattagon Mountains in Australia in 2006. The camp that we chose is a beautiful spot that's tucked in underneath some impressive sandstone cliffs in some very dense and very remote country. Roughly 30 people were staying in the same campsite as us, spread out over about 10 sites. I was there with my girlfriend and a few friends. We had chatted The cracking noise had been trees snapping like twigs as the rock took them out on its way down. Needless to say, we felt very lucky and humbled by the sheer scale of this event. Oh, that's scary. This has nothing to, well, a little bit. It reminded me of a story, just not on the same scale. But in our old house, when Eric and I lived in the suite attached to the house, one night during this insane storm, a giant tree in the yard snapped and fell on the roof of our part of the house. And I don't think I have ever heard a sound that loud. And it fell, like it landed right over top of our bedroom, where I was at my desk studying for a final exam that I had that night. And Eric was in the other part of the house, just on his computer. And I actually don't even think he heard it. I don't think Eric heard it because he was playing a computer game. I don't know which one, but he must have had the volume up really loud. But I definitely heard it. And his parents came rushing into that side of the house so fast. Like they thought that something awful had happened to us. But thank God we were fine. The roof completely stopped the tree. Thank God. But it completely blocked the driveway of the house as well. And it's fine to see now because everything was fine. I didn't have to go to my final exam that night because I had no way to get out of the driveway. So I emailed my professor and I even sent him a picture of the tree that had fallen. I was like, I'm kind of stuck, I can't get out. And he was like, it's fine, we'll just do it next week. So that was nice. I had an extra week to study. Anyway, so file this story under unsettling, but not creepy or supernatural. 17 or 18 years ago, my fiance, now my wife of nearly 16 years, myself and one other couple were hiking the Pyramid Point hiking trail in the Sleeping Bear Dunes of northwestern Lower Peninsula of Michigan at dusk. We had my old film camera with a 200mm zoom lens on it. We got to the overlook, which looks northwest over the Manitou Passage to the Manitou Islands. We watched the sunset and entered that late dusk period that seems to last forever during a northern Michigan summer. It was probably 10 o'clock p.m. at this point. There were high winds and solid waves breaking on shore below us. The Pyramid Point overlook is maybe 150 to 200 feet above Lake Michigan, but it didn't look any rougher than many evenings on Lake Michigan, where 5-foot breaking waves are fairly routine, and windy nights and crashing waves provide great white noise for sleeping in a tent. We were camping elsewhere. There's no camping at this particular trail. While standing and talking, we saw a light flash one time out in the water between the islands and the mainland, in the vicinity of the North Manitou Shoal Lighthouse. A crib lighthouse standing alone in the water, not inhabited weren't even sure our lights were bright enough to be seen at that distance. And given that the stretch of shore is almost all forested, we were just a little spot several miles away. We were suddenly full of adrenaline and concern. Two of us ran back to the car, half a mile through the woods, in the dark, down a hill with our flashlight, and we got a cell phone and binoculars. While we were gone, the folks on the lookout had no light source. At the car, we called the Coast Guard from our cell. It was 1998 or 99, so these were not smartphones by any stretch of the imagination. We explained to the Coast Guard that somebody was flashing SOS at us out in the water, and that we were hikers observing this from the Pyramid Point overlook. They said that they would send a ship to look over the area, and we asked them to hurry. At this point, we ran back up to our overlook, half a mile up a steep hill, with the binoculars, our phone, and our flashlight. Atop the lookout, there was no cell signal, so we had to pocket the phone, and we had no further communication with the Coast Guard. With our binoculars, we were able to see a guy in an aluminum rowboat, rowing like crazy, with waves breaking over the bow of his boat. Bow or bow of a boat, I don't know. It was nearly pitch black outside, so we were only barely able to make this out. Maybe it was 10:30, 10:45 at this point, and during Michigan summer, it's still light enough to see outside well. He would occasionally turn around, flash SOS at us, and then go back to rowing the boat. It was disturbing to be several miles away, completely helpless, while we watched this guy struggling in a rowboat in the dark. It got dark. We could not see anything anymore, but every few minutes the man in the boat would continue to flash SOS at us. He did not appear to be making any progress towards the mainland, but he was clearly drifting northward through the Manitou Passage. Every time he flashed, we would turn on our flashlight, shine it back at him for a few seconds, and then turn it off. We did not know Morse code, and we had no cell signal. We stood and we watched for what seemed like forever, completely helpless. The man stopped flashing his light. It was too dark to see his boat. A tugboat that didn't appear to be a Coast Guard ship showed up and started doing a grid search pattern through the passage, with bright lights shining from the boat into the water. The Manitou Passage is probably 6 to 7 miles wide and 6 to 7 miles long, so this was a slow search. A smallish Coast Guard ship started doing wasn't. We called the Coast Guard the next day, wondering if we would see a man die or help to rescue, or neither. But the person on duty had no idea what had happened. Shift change, perhaps. Or that we'd even called the night before. To this day, it is unsettling to me, knowing how harsh the conditions can be on Lake Michigan, and knowing that we had seen a man flashing SOS at us through our binoculars just before it got dark. Just before it got dark was really bothersome, though not as bothersome as the poor guy in the boat who had to be wondering why we weren't doing anything for him. No closure, no happy or sad